Hi, it's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching, and welcome to another episode of Coaching Conversations. And I wanted to make you aware of something very cool that we're doing on a subscription basis, and we'll put a link in each one of our episodes. But every Wednesday, we're going to be doing what we call an audio podcast workshop. That workshop will be roughly about 14 to maybe 20 minutes per episode, with each month having a theme from a coaching model, using feedback strategically, to coaching self-awareness, and so on. So if you could look in the body or in the content description of each episode, and you will see a link where you can join this subscription. These are literally 4 workshops every month teaching specific strategies to address a particular area of workplace coaching as it relates, again, to things like awareness, motivation, teamwork, and what have you. Here's the cool thing. It's only $10 per month, and each month you will get a handout that we will follow along with. So we also give you a tool for you to take notes as we go through each episode. We hope you'll check it out.
What are questions we can ask someone who's lacking self-awareness? Now, when we think about coaching, I also think about emotional intelligence. And we do a lot of work in the field of coaching to emotional intelligence. And I think about the 5 core areas of emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, social skills, and empathy. Now, with that being said, I think self-awareness is probably the number one thing we need to coach to, whether it's emotional intelligence or just in general. We define coaching at Progress Coaching as a 2-step process. 1, getting someone to look in the mirror. 2, taking action on number 1. Very few people, if any, do number 1 on their own. Here's case in point. When was the last time someone came in your office and said, "Boss, I got to tell you, I really hate change, and I got to tell you, my attitude is subpar. I think I could use a good reprimand"? Now, I bet you're giggling a little bit, but when we think about that, self-awareness is tough. Sometimes people just want to do their jobs, and they don't always want feedback. Now, self-awareness is also building self-awareness of where people have strengths and the good things they do. But so often, when we need to address and or provide feedback in areas where somebody really needs to look in the mirror more, that's tough for people. So one of the questions you can use first and foremost is something called a self-actualized question. So what are you going to do to successfully? And it frames out their response. So let's say you have someone who really lacks self-awareness of their abrasiveness, of how they come off to their teammates. You might give them a counterpoint type of question, which is a self-actualized question. So Charlie, what are you going to do to successfully reach out and embrace the people in the other department? Now, the only way he can answer that is to be really friendly and successful and kind of fill it in with a positive, right? The second question, on a scale of 1 to 6, Charlie, 6, when you approach those people, you're typically professional, thoughtful, empathetic, really kind, or at times you can be perceived as arduous and maybe even a little bit disruptive. Where do you think you would rate yourself? Typically, people go in the middle. Well, I'm about a 3 or 4. You might say, yeah, I had you in the same area. Here's the key response. So, Charlie, what do we need to do to move towards a 6 for the betterment of relationships inside the organization? That's called a behavioral rating question. Now, if you have someone who really you've made multiple attempts with, a great way is to use something called the third-party question. So, Charlie, if your best friend were here right now and they were to say that you're potentially kind of avoiding the elephant in the room, meaning you're potentially a little bit disruptive and you need to maybe be a little bit kinder, thoughtful in your approach with the people from the other department, how do you think you would react to your best friend? Now, that's a third-party question. Here's the funny thing. How often do you get questions like that asked of you? You start to think, my best friend, what the heck? And what you're doing is you're lowering their defenses so they have an opportunity to be honest with themselves, which heightens their self-awareness. The fourth type of question is something called a hypothetical question. So, Charlie, hypothetically, if I told you you had an opportunity to increase your thoughtfulness and maybe your professionalism in approaching people in the other department, A, what do you think about that? B, how do you think you'd go about doing that? And that's the framing part of the question. Now, the fifth question can be something really as a last resort, and it's a statement and response question. So what you do is you provide a statement, and then you ask for a response in a controlled time frame. So I might say, well, Charlie, I want to share a statement with you, and I'd like you to do something that's a little bit different. I'm going to share the statement, and I want you to just internalize, embrace, really think about what I said. And then I want to get back in a couple hours, and I want to have a really thoughtful conversation on what you heard and what you're willing to do to counter what I'm about to share with you. Typically, people nod and they say, okay, go ahead. And you say, I think you have an awesome opportunity to be more thoughtful, professional, considerate in your approach with other people in other departments. Hearing that, I want to get back together in the afternoon, and I want to hear what you've digested, what you're willing to do to successfully offset or fight the perception I just shared with you, and what actions you're going to take to facilitate that. So again, when we're coaching to self-awareness, we have to become gifted conversationally. One of the best things we can do is to plan and practice our ability to ask questions. Thank you for listening to another episode of Coaching Conversations by Tim Hagen and Progress Coaching. Now, our company is always coming out with new and innovative solutions to help leaders coach their employees. And recently, we just created a new service called Coach to You, where leaders can pick and choose topics and assign 7 to 21-day programs for employees to learn and, more importantly, apply actions and then reflect and share what they're going to do going forward as a result of the learning. It's called Coach to You. We're literally bringing coaching to your employees. If you're intrigued, we'll have a link in each one of our episodes where you can get more information. And again, thank you so much for listening to another episode.